Hello and welcome to Perspectives, where we take a deep dive into the issues of the day and where we take a look at people's opinion on such issues. I am Ruth Osime. Today, we're discussing a collection of women who have broken glass ceilings, shattered limitations, and rewritten the rules of success. What does it mean to be a woman of impact? It means rising with resilience, even when the path is uncertain. It means leading with courage, forging new paths where none exist. It means lifting others as you climb, creating opportunities, not just for yourself, but for those who come after you. The women being celebrated here are more than leaders. They are forces of nature, builders of legacies, and architects of change. They are the visionaries who turn obstacles into stepping stones, the innovators who transform industries, and the trailblazers whose footprints create a path for others to follow. On the 31st of March 2025, we will come together for the Women with Impact Gala, a night dedicated to honoring the strength, tenacity, and brilliance of women who are reshaping the world as we know it. These women have not only excelled in their fields, they have redefined excellence itself in boardrooms and classrooms, in laboratories and creative spaces, in communities and on global stages. They have shown what is possible when women step into their full power. But their journeys have not been easy. They have navigated challenges with grace and determination. They have faced setbacks, but refused to be defined by them. They have stood tall in the face of adversity, proving their strength is not just about endurance, it's about transformation. As their names and achievements light up the screen before you, remember this. These women are not just shaping industries, they are shaping the future. Their leadership, their innovation, and their unwavering belief in what is possible inspires a new generation to dream bigger, reach higher, and break through every limitation. Come next Monday, March 31st, 2025, we will not just recognize their successes, but celebrate their strength, their spirit, and their unstoppable force. This is more than an event. It's more than a movement. It's a tribute to women in power. We're heading for a short break, but stay with us because in a brief minute, we shall get into the second part of the show, which will all be about Godfatherism in politics with my wonderful guests, Omoyele, Sowore, and Achike, Chude. Perspectives return in just a moment. Now we have two gentlemen who will shortly begin to share their well-considered thoughts on this very important matter, starting with Omoyele Sowore, a politician, human rights activist, citizen reporter, writer, lecturer, and pro-democracy campaigner, known for founding the online news agency by the name of Sahara Reporters. We are also being joined by Achike Chude, political affairs analyst and currently National Secretary, Nigerian Union of Journalists. Great to have the two of you, wonderful people with us here on Perspectives this morning. Great to have you, both of you here with us on Perspectives this morning. So let's start with you, Sowore. Protection of power play. President Tinubu's state of emergency declaration in Rivers State has sparked divided opinions. Some say it was a wise move to prevent further destruction and political turmoil, while others argued he used the federal might to reinforce Godfatherism instead of protecting democracy. What's your take on this?
Well, President Tinubu just did what Godfathers are known for, taking absolute control of the space whenever they are granted the opportunity to do so. But he's not just doing it as a godfather, he's abusing his position as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And what is interesting is that there is a conspiracy around this. All the arms of government at this point are being handled by three major godfathers. Number one is the FCT minister, who is now clearly before Nigerians in charge of the Nigerian judiciary. The Senate president, who also is clearly in charge of the legislative arm, and President Tinubu, who has brought in the executive. These three conspirators were both former governors, senators, and some of the people that I have described as having risen through the ranks of impunity and made it to the top. That's why Nigeria is in trouble with what they did. Don't forget, this same President Tinubu, when he was Lagos State Governor, promised the president of Nigeria then that if he declared a state of emergency in Lagos, that would be the end of democracy. He's president now, and he has done it, and he has done it with absolute power and daring the Nigerian people to challenge him or do anything about it. This is very unfortunate, but as you have seen, this might as well be the beginning of the downfall of more godfathers.
Okay. Can we have Achike, please? Now,
yeah, well, you know, the country is blessed. Nigeria is blessed. Everybody knows that. The country is not operating at the level that it should be operating at. A country of over 200 million people. And for those who try to give the impression that a big population is a disadvantage, they should go to China and find out what is happening in China. You know, India, that is becoming more and more a success in spite of the issues, social economic issues they also have, but India is pulling its weight in the world. And then also you are looking at the massive blessings that this country has been blessed with.
Let me get to my question.
Also natural resources and all of that.
Okay, let me get to my question.
You know, so
now,
when all of these things...
Sorry, I was just going to throw your question at you. Chude.
Okay, go, please do. Okay.
So if a political godfather secures your victory, isn't loyalty inevitable? Even if Governor Fubara regains his position, can he truly govern independently? What power plays do you think will unfold behind
Sorry, please, again, I didn't get you.
Okay, let's just go for a quick break, and while we sort out the technicalities, grab your tea and see you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Perspectives. So can we have Chude back in the house, please? Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, you are saying something about the godfathers.
Yes. No, let me ask you the question again. I said, if a political godfather secures your victory, isn't loyalty inevitable? Even if Governor Fubara regains his position, can he truly govern independently? And what power plays do you think would unfold behind closed doors over the next 6 months?
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. You know, I was trying to build a scenario for why Nigeria is where, you know, she is today, but it's all right. Let's go directly to the question. They say he who pays the piper dictates the tune. And of course, you know that we have had issues of Godfatherism in this country, and the outcomes or the consequences have been very unwholesome and unsavory for the politics, for the body polity of Nigeria. You remember the issue of irrevocable payment standing order of Senator Mba at a time in Anambra State, when Anambra State was thrown into turmoil. And then you also remember when we had issues in Oyo State, when Adedibu asked that question, he made that statement about 25% of the security vote, and he asked, am I not entitled to 25% of the vote? And so when you know, as they say, if you lie down with dogs, you end up with fleas. And so there are consequences for some of the things, you know, that we do. If you have somebody who comes in and bankrolls you, everything about you, you have lost some level of your freedom, you know, and you have sold yourself out to the person who has made you what you are. Because obviously without the money and the resources, you will not get to where you have gotten to. And so if you look at it from that perspective, it would appear that you might owe some bit of loyalty to that person, looking at it from a maybe distorted viewpoint of politics. You know, but the reality is that it goes beyond the individual. It's about the nation, it's about the people. And the people would always be bigger than the individuals. I remember in those days, and even during the period of military rule, the military dictators had this tendency to tell us that Nigeria is bigger than everybody. And then they will go ahead and give the impression that they are bigger than Nigeria. And of course, you also realize, I mean, the statement even by Babangida himself, that the problem with Nigeria is the problem of the elites. Abacha had cause to repeat that, even though they were also part of the elites, but they understood because they saw also what was going on. So if you look at, I mean, the issue of, Godfather, it is not as if in other parts of the world you do not have people that you have to consult. If you want to run for the president of the United States or in France or any other part of the world, there are people that are very influential that are in a position to help to aid, whatever ambition you have, depending on how they look at that ambition. And so, but when it's about, enslavement, when you have to ingratiate yourself to a person who controls everything about you, who has given you everything you need, and then you are sent to the heights. There is a thinking, that there must be honor among people who engage in such things. But it is the society that suffers for it ultimately, because you can see the crisis that is going on in Rivers State. The people of Rivers State are not benefiting from that. And so you now want to ask yourself, how is it possible that somebody can be bigger than a state, or somebody gives the impression that it could be bigger than a country or whatever? It is simply because of the absence of state institutions. Institutions have been weakened, or perhaps even if the institutions are not there. And then so as a result of that, you have this elitist power struggle. And because you do not have the right kind of institutions to, delve into it and resolve it on behalf of the nation state, you have all, manners of crisis emanating, from that unholy alliance between, political actors that ultimately at the end of the day, you realize that the activities do not augur well, do not foster, public unity. All of the crises that we have in this country, the conflicts between Nigerian people, across religious divides, across ethnic divides, across geopolitical divides, are crises that have been provoked by members of the political elites. The people themselves do not have a problem with themselves. They do transactions among themselves across the length and breadth of this country, regardless of ethnic grouping, regardless of religious divides. They have these interactions among themselves at the local, business level, and they've never had issues until the elites come in and then they introduce some of these parochial, come up with parochial interests that they need to satiate, and then the society is thrown into turmoil and crisis. Okay. And that is what is happening. So, yes, you could look at it and say, you must have, the piper must dictate the tune. But then what kind of tune is sounding, is being played? Ultimately, at the end of the day, if everybody, as part of the process, even the ordinary people, are also facing the negative consequences of the unholy alliance between two members of the political elites.
Thank you very much. Can we have Sowore back, please? Thank you very much today.
Well, I agree with most of it.
You want to make a reference to, you want to support his answer, then I ask the question. Ask you your question? Or should I just ask you a question?
Well, I think you should ask your question.
Okay.
I agree, with his sentiments.
Okay.
Yeah.
So many compare Tinubu's control over Lagos to Wike's grip on rivers. Does Wike aspire to replicate Tinubu's model of political dominance? What are the differences in their influence?
There are no differences in their interests. What you must understand is, as a follow-up to how I stated this earlier about the three major gladiators now in the country, as in Akpabio in the Senate, Wike interested in taking over rivers, Tinubu being firmly in control of Lagos, is that these three individuals have been former governors of Nigeria's most lucrative states. I'm talking about Rivers, Lagos, and Akwa Ibom. And what they want to do, this is all about resources, and they want to hijack and control these states and control the entire country, silence everybody who might want to have a difference of opinion, and then just move on to consolidate their total control. In some cases, and you will see more of these, criminal control of the Nigerian political and social and economic space. This is referred to as state capture. That is what you are saying.
But do you think that's the ultimate aim?
Lagos about 3 weeks ago.
Do you think that's the ultimate aim for most governors?
He did it in Lagos. The speaker was...
No, for most governors generally.
The speaker was removed.
Do you think that's the ultimate aim for most governors
every governor.
Generally? No, for most governors wanted to control their... I'm
not in any way endorsing any of these governors. I have stated elsewhere, and I'll restate here, that I have no sympathy for Sim Fumbara. It was his own Sim that provided the network for the Wike to carry out the impunity he carried out, the corruption he carried out in Rivers State until he left to Abuja. So they are partners in crime. But that is to say
but there are those who would argue.
We do not endorse that. The Nigerian citizenship do not want governors who consolidate power, run to the Senate or run to the presidency, and then hold their state by the jugular. Don't forget that most of these former governors are already collecting, very, very crazy pension. Some of them have houses built for them. They're entitled to almost twice whatever privileges they were enjoying when they are governors. What do they want from Nigeria? Why do they want to hold Nigeria in total stranglehold? Is what we are faced with, and that is what we should be discussing. Not to think about what is their taste for ice cream or kunu or suya.
No, but
That's
let me throw a question.
We're talking about Nigeria.
I know. Sorry. Finish your sentence before I throw in my question.
So I'm not here to discuss what a governor prefers or not. I'm here to discuss what is unacceptable to the Nigerian people, to the Nigerian polity, and how people who are carrying out this impunity that we are discussing today should not be allowed to continue in their impunity against the democracy I fought for, he fought for, and that the people of this country ought to be benefiting from. I'm not participating in their fight. Honestly, this is their own fight. We are supposed to leave them to destroy themselves. But they are not destroying themselves, they are destroying the country. Because at the end of the day, what they are trying to do in Rivers is to get Rivers prepared in such a way that when they come back again, there will be no resistance. Like I said, I don't know what will happen to Fubara. I'm not his therapist, and I don't know whether he'll come back the way he left or not, but it's obvious that the way he folded up was too quick. Let me say this to you. When Wike was governor of Rivers State, nobody could have done this to him without consequences. He would have shut down the whole place. Nobody knew that. When Tinubu was governor of Lagos, he would never have accepted a state of emergency in Lagos. So why is it that they think they can get away with this? It's a question we should be asking, and why they must be resisted to ensure they don't get away with this, not a day longer than they have had it.
Okay.
So they don't read the mood of the public, apparently, but they will soon find out that this is not just one of the things that they can do and get away with.
Okay, it's nice. It's interesting that you mentioned the fact that had it been Wike or Tinubu this had happened to, they wouldn't have been able to get away with it. There would have been consequences. But some believe that Governor Fubara acted prematurely in opposing Wike, viewing it as a politically inexperienced move. They argue that proteges should first establish their own power base before taking on their political mentors. So, can both of you, give your opinion on this?
I don't know how we go, and this is the reason we should be discussing proper elections, and not people who come and organize charades.
Yeah, but these are the realities on ground, though.
And they select their handpicked
These are the realities on ground.
Otherwise, if the people had voted in elections in the past and they vote for their own candidate to rule them or govern them, we will not be having this conversation about agreement.
We're having it.
Agreement is agreement.
So we're having it now because this is what
the treasury of a state is something that we should be saying. Maybe we should be matured about. We're talking about crime here. We're talking about economic crime. We're talking about criminal offenses being committed by people. We are talking about the violation of the Constitution. We are talking about treason here. And you are saying, oh, there should have been some maturity. Maturity to do what?
No,
what is Godfather? What is God's son?
No,
is that what democracy is about?
But it exists. That's why we're discussing it. It exists. We cannot pretend that it doesn't. We all know the right ways to go about these things.
It may exist, but it's not acceptable.
It doesn't. Nobody's saying that it is. Nobody's saying that it is. I've never argued that it is.
I'm not here to act as a teddy bear for impunity. I'm not here to hug what is wrong and say, oh, because it exists. It might exist. That's their own problem.
Yeah, but
you cannot use it to truncate the aspirations of a people. You can't use it to suppress development. You can't use it to violate even your own constitution. I mean, their own constitution, because this is part of the problem. If there was a people's constitution in this country, there's no way you could have people who could just wake up and do what they like, and then we say, well, it's all right. They do it elsewhere.
But you have to understand.
Why don't we do things they do elsewhere, like constructing roads and funding education and building hospitals that we can go to.
We understand everything that you're saying. And we also,
and portable water.
We also know that's the right way forward. But with the situation on ground, that is why we're discussing Godfatherism in politics. And whether we like it or not, there's a game to be played in achieving this power. It doesn't make it right, which is why I asked that question, that some have said he wasn't mature enough. That most governors should wait till the second term until they've empowered themselves before they can take on their godfather, because it does exist. Is it right? Not necessarily, but it's on ground, whether we like it or not. So I want to ask Chude what his take on that.
Whether it is right or wrong, the issue is that it has a deleterious effect on the body politic of Nigeria.
Yeah.
It creates crisis and unnecessary, conflict. And at the end of the day, development is stunted. Just like, Sowore said, what is the purpose of government?
But have you answered my question? My question.
As the Constitution has
Listen,
very
today,
clearly.
have you answered the particular question I asked? Whether or not it is right or wrong, the question is that people feel that Governor Fubara acted prematurely by showing his hand very early in the game. That most people who have been able to overtake their godfathers empowered themselves first in the first term before they proceeded to overpower their godfathers. Now, I'm not judging whether it's a right or wrong issue. But is it...
Let me answer that.
I wanted to answer that even using Parkot. Did Wike wait for his second term before he took on Amechi? Let me ask you. Before he obliterated Amechi, did he wait for his second term?
So in other words, you're saying that Fubara doesn't have...
Did he wait for his second term before he asserted himself? And here I am, and I want to be very clear. I'm not justifying the crime that
nobody is.
we are trying to say is acceptable.
No, nobody is.
No. So, but let's just say, for argument's sake, you want to have a conversation about, has Wike ever waited for anybody as an individual to take control of power?
So what did Wike do right?
Even the Abuja that he's in with Tinubu now, Tinubu people are already worried about the fact that he's asserting himself too much. Honestly, I don't want to be a part of a conversation that cheapens, the intellect and the mood of the nation that is prevailing at this time by saying, because we have spent time now saying, should we justify, did it act on time? Whoever who has ever been in power, why don't you say the same thing about the guy in Kaduna? Why is he not waiting for a second time before he's taking on El-Rufai?
The reality is that the damage has been done. And the damage, like I said, has negative consequences on the people of Rivers State, and then even, in Nigeria in general. We are talking about the role of godfathers and so on. Is it good and not? And I tried to establish that in my very first opener, that you always have people of influence everywhere you are. If you're in politics, there are people that you need to consult with and so on. But not in a way, and maybe perhaps get their blessings, but not in a way that will be deleterious to the system and cause crisis within the system. Yes. So regardless, it doesn't really matter at this stage whether Fubara acted tactically or strategically. It's irrelevant. The horse has already left the barnyard. And so what we are looking at are the consequences of what has happened and whether it is a situation that can be encouraged in this country. And so if after 25 years of unbroken democracy, we still find ourselves in a situation of conflict, that is generated or engendered by one or two people in an entire state or in the country, then it means that we have a problem. And we need to look for ways to de-escalate this kind of situation, so that it doesn't continue to affect this country negatively. And but let me even go to something that, Sowore mentioned, and that is, coincidentally, I was listening to Clement Nwankwo of the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room, who talked about the sacrifices that people had to make for this democracy. And I can tell you, I think I can hazard a guess, that about 90 to perhaps 95% of the people who are presently in government today did not fight for democracy, did not weigh against, the impunity of the various military administrations in this country. And so all of them have come in and then perhaps are enjoying the benefits of the sacrifices made by so many other people. And so when people are angry because things are going wrong, it is because they realize that they went to jail. you know, for the purpose of building a country that works. That some of them were harassed by the military, you know, by the security agencies in this country. And if you look at it, the crisis, I keep on saying, and it's important that I say this so that Nigerians themselves will realize that they don't have issues with one another. That on their own, if they are left on their own, they can, you know, work for a country that is prosperous, if only they can be left alone to do what they need to do. All of the crises that we have in this country, even beyond 1990, you know, far beyond the, you know, 1999 till date, are problems that have been instigated by the elites in this country, you know, and that is the truth. So, and it is a misnomer. It is a contradiction because you have a situation where we have 25 years of unbroken, you know, democratic, democracy. So you think that would have made headway and not be operating where we are operating today. And so if there's any danger, are you talking about even elections and the rest? The former INEC chairman, the penultimate INEC chairman, when he left, he was angry about it. He said, look, that the problem, that the weak link in Nigeria's democratization process is the politicians. And that is even the contradiction because they are supposed to be the biggest beneficiary of a democracy that works, you know? But they are the ones that endanger the country's democracy. And so this is a call out to them to act in ways that are in conformity with the laws of this country, to avoid the unnecessary crisis that Nigeria is going through, because all of these crises are absolutely avoidable. Only if they can act with responsibility, if they can act with respect to the rule of law. You know, the godfathers can do whatever they want to do, no wahala, but let them not do it in a way that threatens the fabric of our country. You know, and that is what we're seeing. All of the, you know, turmoil, like I keep on saying, is as a result of two, you know, contesting interests that might not exactly be, you know, in tandem with the interests of the people of their state. And it is time that we call a halt. That we call
let me ask you something. Let me ask you something today. Because sorry that I keep going back to this issue, because the bane of this conversation is actually about the godfatherism in politics. So I have to keep revisiting it, no matter what happens. Now, I want to ask you, how will President Tinubu's actions be viewed by opposition governors in other states? Could this set a concerning precedent? And what can the party collectively do to protect one of their own? What can the PDP party do now to protect Governor Fubara, for instance, in this case? Yeah. And I would like to throw that question to at Sowore.
Okay. Let me even answer briefly. Look, the reality is that you know, when precedences, you know, and that's why people are usually watch carefully, you know, when a case, especially a very contentious and important case, comes before the Supreme Court. They are watching. They are with more keenness than even when the case is before the lower courts, the High Court, the Court of Appeal, and the rest. Why? Because the Supreme Court is supposed to be the last bus stop, you know, and so and members of the Supreme Court are supposed to be people of very high intellect and their moral repute, you know, and so people are watching carefully because whatever they rule on is going to be seen as precedent that every other person is going to follow. So you're very careful. You know, so when you have a situation, for instance, where the courts are no longer functioning as they should, then it becomes a problem for everybody. Whether this is going to be a precedent, I don't know. People are already talking about a possible creeping dictatorship, you know, and they are looking at what has happened in Rivers State, and they are saying, no, this is not in consonance with the rule of law in this country. And that if we are not careful, we could see a repeat of that. And so I hope that it doesn't get to that level. And and then again, I think Sowore tried to establish, you know, there is supposed to be a balance so that you don't give too much power to one man. As Norman Tesku said,
but is there a balance? Is there a balance?
No man is so
good and so
nice to be given absolute power.
Is there a balance now from what you can see?
No,
is there a balance?
We're not seeing the balance. This is the issue. It's called checks and balances. There should be a balance. They should all work together because they're all working together for a common good, the good of the nation state. But even in spite of that, for the possibility that people could make mistake, they also put in place a National Assembly to also check the excesses of the executive, and you have the courts to also check the excesses of both the National Assembly and the executive.
So do you believe these three sectors have been compromised?
So when they are not there, then the next one is you also have the people themselves to also check the excesses.
Do you believe these three sectors have been compromised? National Assembly, the executive...
They have been compromised, completely compromised. They have been completely compromised. There's no question about it. But I wanted to follow up on one of the things he said about those who fought for democracy. And that's why sometimes we should be careful about, what we fight against. Some of the people who were fighting for democracy in the 90s weren't actually fighting for democracy. They were fighting because they were jealous of what the military guys were doing, that they wish they were in that position. And now that they have gotten to the position that the military guys were in the 90s, you could tell what their interest was. It was to become as powerful as the military guys that they claimed they were fighting against. And if you look at their trajectory, their history, and the stories that came when they were in exile, they weren't fighting for democracy. They were doing business. The second aspect of it is the issue of opposition. The governors of states across the country are all united under the Tinubu regime. They support him even more than his own governors from his own political party. And the reason is simple. They are getting massive allocations that they've never gotten before, stealing and getting away with it. And they cannot wish for a better time than now. So it is the reason why people like me have also warned Nigerians that during this period, you are going to see people who say they are forming coalitions, not because they want to get rid of Tinubu, but because they want to replace Tinubu and his own people and this Godfather, because they really envy them at this time and say, my goodness, we wish we were the ones in power. We can steal your money. We can do anything and nothing will happen. We can capture the state. That's where I mentioned to you that this is about state capture. And don't forget that part. I'm not here to argue that maybe somebody should have been matured enough. And at any rate, let's be very clear, the elite who are involved in this fight will eventually settle their differences. But the people who have been entertained by this will be left worse than they met them, because this is also about distracting you from what should have been political, economic, and social governance and justice in the land. They are just pushing you aside, pushing your issues around. So while you are hungry, while you are dying, while your roads are bad, while insecurity has overwhelmed the country, they are there just entertaining you with things that they will resolve amongst themselves.
Okay, let me
For instance,
okay, go on.
Yesterday already, the sole administrator has met traditional rulers, former government officials. You would think that nothing is wrong in Port Harcourt because all of them are one and the same. And that is why the Nigerian people must take their destinies in their own hand. As much as you might feel bad for one of the guys who has been headbutted in this bullfight, also don't forget that they don't stand for you. And
now that you say that,
time, and because they will get away with this, this is clean crime.
Okay, now that you say that, Sowore, let me still stick with you, because speaking of
yes.
The unfair hands that the Nigerian public is being dealt with, let's talk about movements. Movements like NSAS and the Obedient Wave showed public hunger for change. But why did these efforts struggle to translate into lasting political power? Is it that the country is not ready for such a transformation? Or will it take generations to dismantle this entrenched system?
You see, when you are organizing for power, you cannot organize for power by doing what those people in power are doing. You cannot organize for power by presenting an alternative that is not substantial, that's just, without substance, that is superficial. NSAS was great, it was powerful response, but NSAS had a problem. It was not organized around people who understood how to fight and fight to the end. So those of us who started NSAS were shunted aside because, of course, I was at that time in Abuja, restricted to Abuja. And then others who were declaring victory before the fight was over was what led to what NSAS did. And then what followed, which you describe as the Obedient Wave, wasn't about capturing power. It was about one political group replacing the other. And you saw the outcome. Why? Because when the opportunity came for that movement to have headbutted the system, they all folded up. Because you cannot ask a pack of lions to be led by a sheep and achieve victory. It's not possible. That is what happened with that movement. But I can tell you that a new movement is emerging, and we should be all guided. We should all join hands and ensure that this movement takes the power in the fight from online to offline, And we do it in a very sustained and sustainable way until we win. And that is happening. Young people are getting very conscious. You see a female copper last week. There's a 30 days challenge going on now. And, you know, I like the fact that the elites are always deaf and dumb around when social movements are coalescing, because what ultimately happens is that they are caught unawares.
But when it comes to
the House of Bourbons.
When it comes to social movements, you know that NSAS ended because of the police brutality, when they were attacked with tear gas and what have you. So how far can they really go? How far can any protester really go when it comes to risking their lives?
It didn't end because there was police brutality. It was because there was no planning in place.
So you're saying if it was better planned?
That police would be brutal, that the army would have been brutal. If there was a response the day after the army attack, NSAS would have claimed
so looking back now, looking back, what could have been done?
But the people who were leading NSAS were using NSAS for negotiation. They were using it for creating content. They were using it for personal popularity, and that's not fair.
People died.
When we had conversation with them, they said, "No, we don't want leadership. There is no social movement in the world that don't have leaders that have ever succeeded." They said, "No, this is a leaderless movement. There's nothing like a leaderless movement."
So what do you think went wrong?
Let me just talking about.
What do you think went wrong? No, Chude, before you finish.
Sowore has mentioned.
Sowore, what do you think went wrong with NSAS?
No, I've told you what went wrong with NSAS was that
there was no leadership.
The NSAS leaders of course there was leadership, but they were lying that they don't want leaders. But they were having conversation with Tony Elumelu, Dangote on Zoom. They know themselves, and the ones that raised money were not allowing the money to reach the people who were really fighting the war for the fight.
Okay.
Up to today, there are over 500,000 cryptocurrency monies that disappeared. The people who were involved in NSAS, who raised money for legal support, disappeared after NSAS. Up until last year, we were still getting people out of Ikoyi prison and other prisons in Lagos who were detained for NSAS. Ask yourself, where is feminist.co that raised all the money and said that, oh, you know, we are in charge now, we don't want anybody else? The moment it happened, what happened to them? Why did they pack up? That is not how social movements are organized. So that's why I'm telling you that they knew what they did, and one day the truth will come out. But beyond that, the moment they were done with NSAS, they went and used NSAS progress or NSAS gains into a political movement that took them nowhere. And it was because of greed or naivety or inexperience. Or, I don't know what it could have been, that you have an NSAS movement, it had that great opportunity, and you went and chose for the movement a person to gain from the movement who was part of SARS when he was governor. What kind of counterintuitiveness is that? It was just counter-revolutionary positioning that ended NSAS tragically. But that story will be told at another time, but we know what happened.
So let's have
people who did it knew themselves.
Okay. Chude, you were going to say something, so go ahead. You were going to say something, so go ahead.
Yeah, you know, the NSAS, whether it succeeded or not, was a clear warning to the people that are holding this country down. The hashtag End Bad Governance, whether it succeeded or not, was a clear warning to those people who have misgoverned this country. And what these movements, you know, the message they are sending is that the time will come, the day of reckoning will come. So let those who have ears hear. Those people who think that, you know, who are sitting pretty today, and they think that all is well. All is not well in our country. The vast majority of our people are living in absolute penury. They are suffering. Many of them do not have access to medical care, even basic medical care, and have to do with agbo and all manners of medicines that are prepared by people who might not have all the necessary wherewithal to make sure that these drinks or these drugs are fit for human consumption. You know, and then a lot of people do not have places to put their head under, while our political class continues to wallow in absolute obscene opulence and to display it before the Nigerian people. There's a day of reckoning. And so I'm saying this because we do not want a situation where there is total breakdown and there is anarchy in the country. Because there are too many people in these citizens, over 200 million. You know, how many of these people are hopeless and in despair? You know, so we don't want the crisis, you know, of misgovernance to get to a level where the people will say, look, yes, Nigerians are fabled when it comes to being resilient and all that. You push them, you know, to the wall, they break down defense and all, you know. That is not responsibility. That's irresponsible citizenship. Because a responsible citizen, or, you know, citizen knows, you know, has to, first of all, they have to be politically conscious. Our citizens are not, you know, politically conscious. And it is our duty to also educate them. But for the political class, they say to whom much is given, much is expected. Much more is expected from people who are earning humongous salaries and allowances without anything to show for it. So it's not just telling us that governments are working. Governments can only work vis-a-vis the effect and the impact that the government has in the people. You know, how are the people living? You know, how are they taking care of their daily lives and all that? So the lives of most Nigerians is miserable. And these are the things that build up into social tension, that builds up eventually into, you know, into social mobilization and social action, which ultimately at the end of the day might not augur well for the people if care is not taken. And that's what I'm trying to say, that those people who have ears, let them hear, because they cannot, you know, postpone the doomsday, the evil day for far too long. With the number of people that are being generated every day, poor people, hopeless people, helpless people, you know, who have nowhere to go to. So they must have some level of sympathy for their citizens, and we are not seeing it with this, you know, political class. So it's an appeal for me to them. Eventually, what will be, you know. But we hope that they can also, because there is something. Let me just say this lastly. I think somebody was talking about the election in Ghana. You know, I mean, civil societies went to Ghana and the rest, and they came out. Not that we are talking about a perfect election in Ghana. You will not have, you know, perfection anywhere. You know, but do you know, would you believe one of the strange stories they told was that ballot papers, at the end of the day, when they are counted, they are kept at the police station in Ghana. Now, you ask an ordinary Nigerian whether a ballot box can be kept at a police station in this country. And of course, you can hazard, I know that you can hazard a guess. I know what the response of most Nigerians will be. But you see, the fact that we are having more or less smooth transition in Ghana doesn't mean that, like I said, things are perfect. But there is a consensus, you know, an elitist consensus by the political class, even in Ghana, that there are certain limits that we must not go beyond. My fear with this country is that there are no more limits, you know, to the perfidy that goes on in government and, you know, and in governance. And if care is not taken, then we are all going to have a problem sooner than later. Look at the issue of elections in Nigeria. From 1999 to date, we are deploying 30,000, you know, security forces for a state, 40,000 for a state. You will think that if our elections are going well, that for every subsequent election, there will be a drawdown from 30,000 to 25,000. The next set of election, 20,000. The next set, 10,000. Until it gets to a level where you don't even need serious security personnel on ground. But the fact that you keep on increasing the numbers tells you, again, that all is not well. And where is the problem coming from? The political elites.
At you and Sowore, obviously we know we are very, as citizens, we are very disillusioned about the results of elections, and we believe that at the end of the day, you know, it's all handled by the powers that be, not necessarily representing the voices of the people. So if elections mean nothing and Godfathers always win, or they always provide a way to win, why should Nigerians even care about voting? What can be done to further encourage more Nigerians to vote? What can we do to win the public trust, to enable Nigerians go to the place and believe that their votes will count? So you can answer that
let
first.
me say first and foremost, yes. Let me say first and foremost that the only thing I disagree with my comrade here is that the political class will listen. I hope they don't listen. I hope that they are deaf and dumb and their ends can come very fast. The impunity is too much and anger is building in the land. I'm not here to sugarcoat it. I hope that they continue to act with impunity, disrespect, and they continue to trample and debase our people to the point that they're angry enough to say enough is enough. We are not going to accept this.
How soon can you see that happening?
I hope that
How soon can you see that? How soon can you see that happening?
Well, I don't have a calendar for you, but I will tell you something. Every ingredients that will make it happen, they are all in place. And the night of the Cuban Revolution, the elites were drinking champagne and saying the Cuban people are foolish. The night of the French Revolution, the House of Bourbons were having weddings, they were having fun until they fell. 100 years later, they got back together and said they want to come back. The people of France said, no, this is never going to happen again. So I hope Nigerians continue to organize, continue to engage, discuss with themselves how to liberate themselves. Ultimately, and I'll keep saying it, a revolution is what will come and clean all of this up. I'm even surprised. I think that the elites are surprised that they have gone on for this long without that kind of uprising. I'm sure they sit down and say, what's wrong with these Nigerian people? Why haven't they come after us? And when they don't, they become emboldened. But in every society where ultimate revolutionary change has changed the conditioning of the mind of the oppressor, of the thieves, and those who don't let them make progress, what they are doing in Nigeria now is what they have always done. They get to a point where they are comfortable in their impunity, they take the people for granted, and one day, one small spark will just end it all for all of them. That's why I said, I hope they don't listen, and I hope they continue to be unconscious, unreasonable, and insensitive and irresponsible. We need it so that we can get to the final destination very fast. Do you think
the court of public opinion and the power of social media would help, get rid of Godfatherism one way or the other?
Nigeria's problem is not Godfatherism alone. Nigeria has a governance problem, of which Godfatherism is
but do you think
social
media and the court of public opinion?
We have election problems.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Do you think social media has played any role?
I understand you are asking, but yes. Of course, social media has become one of the most powerful tools for mobilization and engagement, and is not going anywhere anytime soon.
But is it enough? Is it enough to dismantle the
to see the hand? And social media will continue to help form coalitions, real coalitions of the oppressed. I have no doubt about it. My problem is how long people stay online as opposed to going offline to carry out the necessary action, to do the needful.
Okay.
That's what I have problem with social media. Social media have a way of also kind of demobilizing if you overdose on it.
Okay. Chude, what's your take on that? What's your take on the role of social media and court of public opinion?
We have seen this. Yeah.
I said, what's your take on the role of social media?
We have seen what social media has been able to.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes, I know. Okay. It is phenomenal. It is phenomenal. There's no doubt about that. It has brought about a lot of movements and a lot of changes to a very large extent. And of course, you can use social media for different purposes. Like Sowore said, it can be demobilizing, but it can also be mobilizing, depending on how depending on how it is used. We saw what happened with the Arab Spring. It was all something that happened outside on the streets, and then before you know it, it had grown wings, and it was everywhere, and they now cut across so many continents and across different countries and brought down institutions and brought down governments. And that's why, the leaders, but again, it should be used as a barometer even by the ruling class. I know that Sowore says, well, he hopes that they continue in their perfidy so that eventually that inevitability will come about. But it should also be seen as used as a barometer, even by the political elites, the political class, the not so responsible political class or irresponsible political class. So that, because when they see, it's an aggregation of what the people feel about them. That's what you see on social media. So, and that should be, they should be able to take some lessons from what is going on, because that's an assessment. Don't forget in those days, and, talking about, barometers, don't forget in those days, I think it was Abacha or Babangida that said it in those days, that they take their cues from the media. When they want to embark on a certain military adventurism, they take their cues you know, from the media, because the media is a reflection of what the people say and all that. And so on that basis, they know that if they step into governance, that they can have the support of the people. Now we have social media, so that's why I said, let those who have ears hear, let those who have eyes, let them see and let them read. Then they will know that all is not well with their people. They know that their people are saying all manners of things against them. And what a good president
let me ask you one question.
And even political leaders and good leaders. Yeah, okay.
Let me just ask, I'm throwing this question at both you and Sowore. But with how politics has become so discouraging and so people are so disillusioned by politics, how can you encourage people to enter into this foray? Because the average person, I don't see how, you know, they would want to. First of all, it's so expensive, a venture. So how do we now make politics attractive to the kind of people that we feel that once they enter, they can change the narrative? So just briefly, because we only have about a minute left.
Okay, good. Thank you. I think that's a good question. You know, we played a very big role in trying to mobilize the young people before the last election, 2023. We kept on telling them one thing, and then again, I think at the end of the day, we realized that we also misled the people. We deceived them, maybe not consciously, not deliberately. After the elections that took place in, I think, Ekiti and Osun, you know, we came up with this sing-song, Beavers is a game changer. You know, and then, of course, you know, the young ones didn't believe. They didn't believe. They didn't have any interest in the system itself. But for the first time, they began to say, well, maybe we could make an impact. Maybe we could make, you know, maybe we could make an impact. And then you can see how they mobilized themselves, self-mobilized, went and registered, and then mobilized again for the election itself. So, you know, so that's what we need to continue.
Okay, thank you so much.
To do.
Thank you.
You know, whether that translates, it doesn't matter really whether it translates to success.
Okay, let's just have Sowore.
When our country found ourselves
in a
difficult situation, we did nothing.
Okay, Sowore, please, a brief, just 1 minute, because I've run out.
I think people who are disillusioned, and I know a lot of Nigerians are disillusioned, should seek alternatives. And the alternatives are not limited to waiting for elections. You have seen progressively elections have become selection in this country. And if you leave things the way they are, you are going to get another selection in 2027. They have showed it to you in off-season elections, what they will do in subsequent elections. They are looking at people who will be appointed to INEC, who are beholden to the same special interests and godfathers. In fact, the next INEC chairman might be chosen by a godfather in Delta State, who is also versed in impunity and perfidy himself. But it's very important that people seek alternatives. It's not only waiting for elections.
Thank you so much.
And for votes to be counted or discountenanced.
Thank you so much.
It is for you to vote when it's necessary, also with your feet.
Thank you.
All right? And that's why I said a revolt is necessary.
Thank you so much.
I'm not shy from it.
Thank you so much, Sowore. Thank you so much, Achike, for being with us this morning. Thank you for being very interesting guests on Perspectives. Now, as we celebrate women who break barriers and shape the future, we must also confront the forces that threaten progress. From Rivers State to the national stage, political godfathers still dictate who rises and who falls, exposing the fragility of our democracy. One thing is clear, democracy is on trial, and the verdict lies with the Nigerian people. And as I keep saying, remember that life is a learning curve. So that's all we have time for today. You've been watching Perspectives here on Arise News with me, Ruth Osime. We shall be back at the same time next week, God willing. Until then, do have a glorious week.